start that. Okay, thank you everybody for joining us. This is really exciting to have you with us. We're here to talk about digital futures and the role of digital tools in helping us as education providers embed responsible management education principles and concepts and mindsets into our curriculum in multiple ways. And I'm really delighted to welcome my fellow panelists here today to share their insights with you. So my name is Professor Beverly Hawkins. I am the Associate Dean Education for the University of Exeter Business School. I'm going to hand over first to my colleague Aurelian to introduce himself.
Thank you, Beverly. Hello, everyone. Good morning or good evening, depending on where you are. I'm currently sitting in Paris. I'm Aurélien Descamps. I'm the co-founder of Sulitest. We design online tool to mainstream sustainability literacy.
Thank you, Aurelian. And Wilfred, I'll hand to you next.
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Wilfred Meinhardt. I work at the Erasmus University of Rotterdam School of Management. I'm a policy director here, helping the school in their institutional development. And I've also been, I'm also an honorary professor in Edinburgh Business. And I've been helping Prime in the last 3 years, developing the new SIP committee lead.
Thank you, Wilfred, and Vejo.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, good evening, and maybe even good morning to some of you. Now, my name is Veijo. I come from CESIM Business Simulations and sending you lots of warm greetings from Helsinki, Finland.
Thank you. And Tung Tung, would you like to introduce yourself too?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Tung Tung Chen, and I am the project manager for Prime Commons.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, I'm really excited to hear what my fellow panelists have to say and to hear about their insights. But I'd like to start just by sharing a few slides, if you don't mind. And of course, they have a few Mentimeter polls as well to share with you. So I would really hope that you can, that you're willing to contribute to our Mentimeters. Hopefully, you should be able to see some of the slides now. So I'm going to just set the background, and you should be able to find the code for our Mentimeter polls in chat. So I think my colleagues, if you're willing to paste into chat the code, that would be amazing. We'll come to the polls in a minute. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about why sometimes it can be so challenging to embed responsibility and sustainability into our education practice. And it has to do with this idea of sustainability as a boundary object, this idea that sustainability or responsibility, in fact, means different things in different academic disciplines and other social worlds. And because it's constantly understood differently, it's constantly being altered through interactions, technologies, through the sort of zeitgeist of the day and the discussions that are happening all around us in the news, in popular culture, as well as in academic disciplines. And one of the interesting things about that is that it is incredibly tricky because there's so much complexity to it. But that also means that it gives us opportunities to think in very interdisciplinary ways. And I think interdisciplinarity is perhaps one of the keys to helping our learners understand the different approaches to sustainability. And the idea is that as concepts like responsible management education, responsible business, sustainable business become integrated across the curriculum in different ways, learners are going to have to encounter this multiplicity. They're going to have to understand the multiple different ways and lenses that we can use to access understandings around these topics. So what I wanted to put across to start us thinking before we hear from our panelists is to imagine that sustainability learning isn't linear, because all of these really complex ideas don't exist in sequence or in isolation. They're sort of layered on top of one another and inside and nested into each other. And we might understand them as threshold concepts. Those are concepts that are quite often for students really difficult to understand. But once you've grasped it, you can't unlearn it. You can't go back to thinking about something as you did before. It's changed your perspective, not necessarily just on that one concept, but on how everything else fits together as well. And so this is what makes sustainability and some other concepts especially challenging for learners. And as someone who's taught a lot, particularly first-year students, undergraduates who are coming in with preconceived ideas about sustainability being about certain things that they've read about and not really understanding how it connects into management education, that can be really tricky to grasp. But once they have it, it acts like a portal, and it opens up all of these other avenues to learning. And we can see that in other very specific concepts that might be relevant in your disciplines. So, for example, other threshold concepts that we might be more used to thinking about in the history of our disciplines are things like opportunity costs, systems thinking, the triple bottom line, the lack of a panacea to cure climate change. All of these things are sort of concepts that once you grasp them, you can't unlearn them. You can't go back to thinking about them in a different way. And that means that actually you've opened up an avenue to better understandings for grasping sustainability. So my first query for each of you then is to think, well, what might be the concepts that are connected to responsible management education or to sustainability within your own discipline that students tend to find difficult? So what are the parts of your own teaching practice where students tend to get stuck and they find it a little bit tricky to grasp the understanding of that? But once they've grasped it, all of a sudden, new opportunities for learning are coming through that enable them to connect to sustainability in different ways. I'm hoping that you should be able to access this Padlet here. So if you go to menti.com and use this code here at the top, this code is 5317-7347. Hopefully, you should be able to provide three different phrases or ideas that your students typically struggle with when it comes to thinking about sustainability in different ways or thinking about your own discipline in different ways. So I'd like to invite you to spend just a couple of minutes thinking about that now. We're seeing a few here coming through. Trade-offs, holistic thinking, absolutely. One of the key principles of a sustainability mindset is understanding those connections and the complexity of that. Systems thinking. Circular economy is a really, really important one. That move from sort of linear thinking about production is so important and so foreign to lots of students when they start coming to terms with this. So I'm really excited to see all of these ideas coming through. Planetary boundaries, that's definitely one that my students have struggled with as well. Things about being more than recycling, absolutely. It's not just about polar bears, absolutely. I hear this all the time from my own students. So these are some really interesting ideas. And thank you so much. I'm sure we'll be coming back to some of these ideas a little bit later on. So thank you for that. I'm going to invite you to move on to the next Mentimeter at a moment. But what I guess the other thing I wanted to suggest is, you know, as educators, we're kind of hosts of this space where students have got to tackle all of these really complex ideas that they haven't heard before, and that where they might get stuck, but which once understood, all of a sudden it opens up these new portals to discovery. And so we are kind of in the position of hosting these students whilst they grapple with all of the uncertainty and doubt that learning involves. And that's where my fellow panelists come in today, really. It's about how can we develop tools that will be absolutely fundamental to helping students tackle some of these really complex ideas, and in so doing help them understand the sort of web of connections between all of those ideas that enable them to develop a sustainability mindset. So I guess before I invite my colleagues to come in and share a little bit more about the work that they're doing, I'd like to ask you one more question, and that is about your experiences of AI, because I'm sure that's probably been quite high up on the agenda of the discussions today. So one other question we had for you is, how have you used AI in the classroom or elsewhere at work? And again, it's the same code, so hopefully you should be able to just follow along at menti.com, and hopefully this will help you kind of connect into this and suggest some ideas for using AI. Because again, I think these are really valuable opportunities within AI to think about how do we enable students to overcome that stuck feeling, to build their confidence up. At the moment, I think we're sometimes in higher education anyway, seeing AI as a kind of a deficit model to AI. It's taking something away from the way that we do things sometimes. And actually, there are so many opportunities here to support and scaffold learning. And so I'm really interested in how people are using it right now, and moving the discussion away from some of the fears that we have, which might be legitimate, but also, you know, helping to see that in context, I think, is really, really valuable. Okay, and one last query for you all. What digital tools have you used to help you embed sustainability in your teaching? So what, you know, thinking about AI or other tools, which tools are you currently finding valuable when it comes to thinking about embedding sustainability and responsible management education practice in your teaching? Good to see Sulitest is up there. We definitely use that at the University of Exeter Business School, so we are absolutely sharing Sulitest with our students. Simulations.
I did not post this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are so many different opportunities here out there. I kind of feel like we're spoilt for choice, but one of the things I think I'm very conscious of when I'm working with students in this is that these digital tools are part of the solution. They have to be part of the solution. Digital technologies in general are part of the solution to help us understand and develop responsible management education. So it makes sense that we are connecting that into our teaching practice in some way, I think. So it's really interesting. I love the idea of having students present or develop podcasts. That's really interesting. I might steal that one later, don't know. Okay, thank you so much for these ideas. I'm really excited to hear more. Okay, I'm going to suggest now that we stop sharing these slides and invite my colleagues to introduce themselves and the work that they're doing a little bit more. And I'm sure that we'll come back to some of these queries and ideas that you've shared over the Mentimeters when we move on through this session, because I think, you know, there are so many ways to think about embedding this, and many different layers of doing so, as we'll hear later on. And I think what this is indicating to me is just how many different approaches we're using. And I think one of the things I try and teach my students is that a both and approach to resolving sustainability challenges is really important. So I think that's borne out by some of the things we're doing here. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Hopefully you can see us all a bit better now. I'm going to invite my colleagues to share some of their thoughts now. And the first colleagues that I would like to invite to share are Wilfred and Tung Tung. So if you'd like to share some thoughts on what you've been up to and how you see yourself involved in this space, that would be great. Thank you.
May I, Wilfred? Yeah, you're muted, but it's okay. I'm here to share the Prime Commons, which is a platform that I was asked to develop exactly 18 months ago. So I think that the assignment was first to digitize the sharing information on progress, the SIP reporting, and also to capture the principles and the spirit of the Prime community. And I think that I am very, very happy to say that today the platform is a reality and all the signatory members have access to it. And the reporting period is until the 31st of August. So in something shorter than 2 months. So we're very excited to see how institutions are sharing their progress on Prime. For the first time, we have a structured approach to collecting these data. And I know that earlier in all the other sessions, we talk about how we need to move towards diversity and contextualization and talk about how universities are doing things that are fit for purpose and that they're creating and doing activities that are actually correspond to the strategy of sustainability. So I think this is a very exciting platform. And on the one hand, you have the reporting, which is about institutional knowledge sharing and also collecting institutional memory, making sure that everyone, all the member within the school have access, whoever that leaves. We all know turnover is quite high in academia as well. So whoever who are coming into this space will have access to previous knowledge and also know that what kind of progress, what kind of steps and activities have been taken to get where we are today. So that's sort of the first picture, the first part of the comments. And the second part comes the community building, where members are encouraged to talk to each other, to attach their objects, their policy, courses, shared with one another. It is the first place where people can really scrutinize, discuss, and also collaborate together and say, hey, we are having similar goals. How can we move together and band together and bridge our knowledge and all these gaps together to create a better future in the space of responsible management and education? So that's Prime Commons. And yeah, thank you.
Oops, I muted myself. Thank you so much, Tung Tung. I really appreciate it. Wilfred, would you like to add anything quickly? Oh, I think you're muted.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I really like your concept of threshold concepts.
Thank
And
you.
I think of the journey of the renewal of the SIP reporting logic. It's more like institutional threshold learning than individual threshold learning. Because you give, rightfully so, the immense diversity of context in the 900 prime schools, the multiple definitions and perceptions and realities in schools around the world is such a wonderful situation, but also very difficult to capture and to codify.
Yeah.
And envisioning a platform where institutional threshold learning on these concepts is core business is a fascinating thing for a designer. So my policy and strategy energy goes into that. How do we help for schools to create more or less a codification of what threshold means and what we learn from each other as Prime members? I think I leave it for this comment at this moment. I think later we come back on the levels of learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. So I'd like to hand over to Vahil now, who's got some really interesting insights again to share about simulations.
Yeah, thanks so much, Beverly. Now, actually, I want to start with a little bit of personal experience because I had I would say, life-defining moment as an undergraduate 30 plus years ago when I experienced the business simulation first time and felt that then and there I started understanding how business functions as a whole and how value is created. And it was also good fun because we operated as a team and competed against other teams. And for those who may not know, business simulation is a form of experiential learning where students run their virtual businesses as teams. And then these topics that Beverly mentioned, systems thinking, coping with uncertainty, trade-offs, understanding that you cannot do everything with finite resources. These are very much in the heart of the business simulation concept. And obviously, sustainability and responsible management are an integral part of the student experience these days. Now, another life-defining moment, or should I say threshold concept, came when I realized how there is an opportunity to harness the power of generative artificial intelligence for business simulations, like I had never even imagined. The journey is obviously still at the very early stage, but my prediction is that in a 2-3 year time frame, people will be asking, how did we ever do without generative AI in this type of learning concept like experiential learning and business simulations? Now, one anecdote that I want to share relates to the sustainability mindset. And with this, I want to kind of end on a positive note, because typically when we develop the products at CESIM, we collect a lot of feedback from the instructors and professors and so forth, and they say you have to have this and you have to have that. Now, 5-6 years ago, when we started seriously looking into the ESG and sustainability elements, the echoes, they were not so much coming from the professors, but they were coming from the students. So this was really the kind of moment that made me think that there is a lot of awareness among the students, and now we as the kind of older generation, we just need to make sure that we give them what they need, and we make sure that we cultivate them in the right manner, and all of us seem to have hope. So with this, I'll pass the torch to somebody else.
Thank you so much. I think those stories about our own experiences of being immersed in some of this is really, really valuable. So thank you for starting us with some of that, because I think so many of us can relate to that experience of suddenly being immersed in something new for the first time, and realizing how much it opens our eyes to some of these challenges and differences. So I'm grateful to you for that, and also for drawing attention to the fact that I don't think we've barely touched the surface yet of how our students' lives and our own teaching practice and institutional practice is really going to be impacted by AI. So thank you for those insights. Our next panelist that we're going to hear from is Aurélien. Over to you.
Thank you, Beverly. So I'm Aurélien Descamps. I'm the co-founder of Sulitest. At Sulitest, we are designing online tools, and especially we are leveraging assessment tools to mainstream sustainability literacy. So our starting point is really to say that, if you look at sustainability, everything comes from human decision, often taken in a professional context, and quite often by people who are educated, they are skilled, and still they are taking decisions that are not so sustainable. So really our mission is to make sustainability the new mainstream, beyond experts, beyond activists, but really anyone who will take a decision should have at least basic sustainability literacy. So that's what we want to achieve. And to do that, we are leveraging assessment tools. So we are designing digital assessment, and especially our flagship tool called Task for the assessment of sustainability knowledge is here to provide a reliable and robust measure of sustainability knowledge for the learners, and is issuing a certificate to demonstrate that you have a common understanding of sustainability. As I was saying, we really want to go beyond experts and activists, so to build this common language as a common understanding of sustainability. And we want to provide tools that make sure that individuals can demonstrate their understanding of sustainability, and that the measure and the data produced by the tools can be used by higher education institutions business schools, universities, to leverage the data to inform the pedagogy and the curriculum. I think in every business school at the moment, the curriculum is revised and sustainability is integrated in the curriculum one way or another. So how can you use and leverage data to inform this curriculum revision? And also to walk the talk, to demonstrate your impact. You will do a lot of things in courses, in curriculum, in student experience, in the holistic approach of your institution for sustainability. How can you demonstrate that everything that you do is able to improve your students' understanding of sustainability? So this is what we want to achieve with Sulitest. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aurélien. Again, that resonates such a lot with me. I mean, one of the things that I think we've been grappling with as a business school over the past couple of years or more is the idea of how do we really understand the amount of learning that takes place over the course of a student's time at university that's above and beyond what may or may not be included in their learning outcomes. So having these other measures like Sulitest is such a valuable opportunity to try and understand the sort of richness and complexity of the student learning experience when it comes to sustainability, which it's really difficult to narrow down into just learning outcomes. So I think there's so much value in thinking about this. And again, you know, these multiple tools coming up is such a really important way of understanding this kind of matrix of opportunities that our students are experiencing and that we can harness to try and tackle some of this. So I think it speaks so much to that both and approach as well to understanding sustainability. I'd like to move the discussion on and come and ask some more questions about next steps and where you think the use of these tools might help shape higher education or responsible management education futures a little bit more. So perhaps a question for my colleagues at CESIM first. Vejo, what do you think the long-term changes that you want to see in business and management education, and how does CESIM play a role in that?
Well, what a wonderful question, and I'm a big fan of those World Economic Forum video clips. I'm sure that many of you have seen them as well, and they always bring some brightness among the otherwise so negative news feed that we get from all the different directions. And recently, I was watching one where one teacher union representative was talking about the role of teachers in the AI or generative AI era. And as we all very well know, there's a lot of concern in the field of education about the impact of AI. So what he said resonated with me very well, as he was kind of redefining the role of the teacher. I mean, I guess traditionally, teacher has been considered as the kind of knowledge worker, and this is what he wanted to kind of us to change, because he said that in the context of AI, the educator's role should be going from the knowledge worker to the wisdom worker. Those who are able to like provide mentorship and to help students apply ethically and morally the concepts to the benefit of many. And now at CESIM, as I said, this resonates very well, because at CESIM, our goal really, I mean, we are a simulations company, so that's at the heart of what we do. We provide experiential learning with relevant content, but generative AI is very much part of it. And with the generative AI, we kind of want to release the trapped value that's currently stuck in the process. And that trapped value will enable the educators to move from the knowledge worker to the wisdom worker. We definitely see the role of the educator being very central in the process. We don't try to replace the instructor. We just want to make sure that they can evolve a bit more from the knowledge worker to the wisdom worker and stay kind of on top of the game when this learning is considered or concerned. And of course, we at the same time we want to make sure that the content of our simulations stays relevant for the students and also prepares them for the world that awaits. So that's a longish answer, I guess, but couldn't stop before.
I think it's an absolutely fantastic answer, and it speaks so much to the challenge we have of developing work readiness and helping students understand the value of what they're doing with their time here in higher education at university, that is beyond the learning content, that is also about work readiness and future readiness and creating future fit graduates that have been through authentic experiences that will prepare them for the next few chapters of their life and to help us tackle some of these enormous global challenges. So I'd just like to give my fellow panelists a chance to add anything to the conversation. If not, very happy to move on to the next question, but wanted to give you a chance to respond.
I would like to reflect a bit on the long-term question. So if you threshold concepts is the core of our sustainability learning, aren't we competing with other, say, very strong concepts in the context of business school? I'll give you a few examples. In the opening session with Sanda, the skills concept was very dominant in her perception of what companies need. That's a very different concept than a threshold concept, because a threshold concept is about understanding, and the skill concept is about practicing and doing and being in a very different context. And two other concepts, for example, the concept of the curriculum. So if you think, how many thresholds moments can you realistically expect from a student in a 60 curriculum? Veo said, I had one experience in my bachelor. Many of us have one or two in the entire degree program. And is it responsible to ask of students to get into 5 or 10 thresholds moments in 1 year? Is that responsible, or will that disrupt them immensely? So how do we waive thresholds, even with technology, in the curriculum? And then the last one I would like to do, the concept of assurance of learning in ACSB is a super linear concept where you have learning goals, you have operationalized it, there's rubrics, there's systemic logic. And how can you make threshold learning rubrics driven? I don't see it. How do you, I think you see it when somebody has had a fundamental experience, but do we need for that? Is that assurance of threshold or something? I don't know. So mapping threshold sustainability learning to the current mechanistic concepts for quality assurance and accreditation, I guess there's a war of the concepts going on here. That's my reflection.
I think there's, I mean, threshold concepts is a little bit of an obsession of mine, so I'm not going to go on here because I could derail this, but I think you're absolutely right. I think there's something about, is there something about limiting threshold concepts to understanding? Can we think about threshold skills which once developed enable us to participate in other parts of formats of collaboration? One thing that always, just to tell a story, something that always strikes me is a memory I have of a student who came to me and pasted a paragraph of their essay into an email and said, "Dear Beverly, can you tell me if this paragraph counts as critical thinking?" And it struck me that critical thinking is a skill, yes, but it's also a threshold concept. You know, once you understand the point of critical thinking and how to engage in it, you can't go back. You know, you've accomplished that. You know, you're on the road towards thinking differently about and being able to question. So I mean, this is fascinating for me, and I think it is at the heart of trying to enable students to build competencies and understandings that together will help them develop sort of some more complex thinking around some of these ideas. But I wanted to come back and then ask Aurélien a question. Thinking about some of the shifts that need to happen in the industry around teaching and learning, around sustainability literacy. I wondered if you could speak a little bit to the role that you think Sulitest and Task might play in supporting all of that work we're trying to do.
Thank you. Yes, with pleasure. Thinking about shifting the industry, of course, the shift that we want to see is sustainability becoming the new mainstream, being mainstream through all disciplines that are taught in business and management education, beyond the specialized courses and beyond the experts. So how can we build this common knowledge, this sustainability as the new mainstream, and how can business and management education can be at the forefront of this paradigm shift and really the champions of this paradigm shifts. So at Sulitest, we know we are one piece of this broader puzzle, this complex puzzle, but we try to be one cog in the system that will hopefully accelerate this transition. So we are doing that first with the assessment. So Task as the assessment of sustainability knowledge to build a common understanding of sustainability. And coming back and probably echoing to what you were saying, Wilfried, we always have this impression of competing concepts, you know, between knowledge, skills, mindset. And it's really strong in what we do that we should have all of them. It's more about the interlinkages, that it's not knowledge or skills or mindset, but are we able to prepare the learner and the students to link their knowledge about sustainability, how they understand the complexity, you know, system thinking, dealing with complexity, leverage points, thresholds, having this common understanding of sustainability and tackling complexity, but also how do I use my knowledge? What kind of skills should we develop? And we need to link knowledge with skills. And we all know the basic framework, the framework of skills and competencies for sustainability, the UNESCO key competencies. For example, in Europe, we have the Green Comp for sustainability competencies. So really as a way to use this knowledge to know how and to develop those skills and the sustainability mindset. I noticed that Isabel is in the audience today. There are work on sustainability mindsets that have been conducted. And this is, I think, the ability of the learners to connect the knowledge of the complexity, the skills, the new skill set that they need to face these sustainability challenges, and the mindset of sustainability. So coming back to your question, what we do with Task, we are one piece of this puzzle, and we try to initiate this mindset by tackling the knowledge piece and the cognitive understanding of sustainability that will allow you to act on sustainability. So really what Task is doing is to make sure that all learners have this common understanding. They speak the same language when they talk about sustainability. There might be a lot of contextualized knowledge or contextualized aspect of sustainability, but we can connect because we speak the same language when it comes to sustainability, and we are able to demonstrate it and to be identified because we hold a Task certificate. So that's one major point, and very rapidly, the second point is really, I think, to help schools, business schools and management university to lead by example. We want them to champion sustainability transformation and to lead by example. So the leader should, I think, be the ones who are not the best of the world, but the best for the world, meaning that they will share their practices, they will inspire others, and probably the comms platform will talk about that, and they will inspire the sector to bring this paradigm shift. Thank you. I will stop there.
Thank you very, very much. That resonates so much with me in terms of thinking about enabling students to speak a shared language. I think some of that from my experience is about helping them understand that actually familiarity with uncertainty and multiplicity is at the heart of all of this, and knowing that actually, you know, there are multiple lenses to this is part of what we trying to help our students understand, that actually, you know, there might be so many different approaches to this that it's a bit like a fractal or a kaleidoscope. You're constantly shifting your perspective a little bit, but having a way of being able to track your progress against that is really valuable and affirming for students, and also great for us in terms of being able to pick up aspects that students are less familiar with, and being able to then make sure that we think about how we can integrate them a little bit more. Before we move on to one last question, I wondered if any of my fellow panelists had anything to respond to Aurelian's points. If not, I will move on.
So I have little reflection, Beverly, on the say learning students the same language of sustainability. I think it's an utopia to have one language of sustainability. If what I learned in the prime community in the last phase is diversity is the driver, not uniformity. And the inspiring thing is the diversity and the continuous reframing of things in different contexts. And I think it's more and more difficult to assess what is really learned if there's so much fluidity in the conceptual approaches. I think there was an article recently on 30 years of sustainability research, and it concluded that we never reached a conclusion, because there's so many different aspects and approaches that we made a horrible complex mess of the conceptualization of the whole thing. And you know, this is reality in academics. We invent new concepts every day. And this is what builds careers for academics. They have a new concept, so they can push their promotion and tenure committee. So we will create complexities on concepts. And it's a bit poor, it's a bit, yeah, I feel a bit for the students to have to deal with all these evolving concepts all the time, while they have to earn their bread in their professional lives. So I think we are maybe over-complexing things instead of unifying knowledge and language. Just a reflection.
Thank you for that. I mean, I think my understanding is that one of the things we need to help our students tackle is that presence of doubt and uncertainty, particularly when it comes to thinking about solving wicked problems, and that's absolutely part of it. I wonder if there's a both and approach here as well. So I think perhaps the answer is not just one or the other, but actually we need to find some common ground, some threshold concepts where there is a definition or a starting point maybe for discussion. So sometimes when I'm talking to students about certain concepts in class, I'm not saying, okay, this is a single definition, there's only one way of understanding this, but this is a launch pad to helping you understand different approaches, and to enable you to enter into a dialogue around some of these ideas. And I think that's perhaps maybe something that's a little bit more aligned to concepts of sustainability literacy. It's not being able to nail down solutions, but it is about being able to enter into the conversation and ask questions and engage and feel able to kind of take part in some of that conversation, which I think sometimes for students is difficult to do, especially if, you know, there are cultural challenges around that as well. So I do wonder if maybe some of the skills that we're asking is about, you know, how do we help our students ask questions about this? Tung Tung.
Yes, I do want to challenge Wilfred's reflection a little bit here, because I do think that different concept or new languages actually enable our or push forward our understanding, right? So I don't feel sorry that the language on social media and hashtags change all the time. It'll actually allow us to understand what is new and what is necessary in order to progress with each other. And that's also where I see there are different ways of doing things. I know that there is a lot of hype with AI right now. The reason why AI is fundamentally different from what we have before is because with Google search, it's completely deterministic, right? You know what you're searching for, you type it in, I don't know, you want to type in soy milk or something, you want to understand why does the wind only move in one direction, you just type wind, and you don't really interact with the knowledge. And we always say, you know, the best way to bury a dead body is on the second page of Google. So you have these hierarchies and different layers of knowledge, and suddenly AI come in. And AI is a different model. It's not a deterministic model. It is a probabilistic model. How you use ChatGPT really depends on your prompt. All 5 of us could use ChatGPT right now, and we would ask fundamentally different questions depending on our needs, our relevance, the purpose of the question, and what we want to learn. This is where I think that what Veo was talking about, we cannot imagine a world without using generative AI then. So the way that we need to view this, and I think looking back at sort of why Commons was created in the first place, was to start indexing what is out there in RME, to understand what is there, what kind of language are we using, and how that language and understanding change over time. Because as we are in this sphere, in this society, we're also maturing as individuals and citizens, right? And so, and our challenges also changes across time. So I do think that there is a lot of benefit in diversity and in the way we're approaching things right now. And there is a lot of value in capturing this in dialogue with one another.
Thank you, Tung Tung. That was a great closer to that question. I've got one more question which I'd like to ask Wilfred, if that's all right. And that's in reflecting on your experience with Prime Commons. How do you see the role of partnership as being important in how we collaborate with providers of digital tools like CESIM and Sulitest in order to embed RME, responsible management education, into our practice?
Yes, thank you for this great question, Beverly. And partnerships is part of what I call the relational model, which is different than the of learning. So once you adapt to or accept that there's relations, the key to learning and to connecting and everything, then a new logic emerges. Also in building how you build your education and how you produce your knowledge. And the point that was important in creating the that is now open for schools is not only the breadth and scope of what we do, but also the level of integration of the sustainability knowledge into the degree program. So if you have seen the survey, there's one question about to what extent is sustainability at RME in the core of your degree programs, for example, the learning goals or the vision, the educational vision. And we've made 6 different levels of integration. And for people who have been in the survey already, they know it. So if you have the first level, it's more like the enthusiasm level, where an individual faculty member invites from his intrinsic motivation speakers and people, not part of the formal curriculum, but as part of an inspirational activity. And it moves on to embedding it in the learning goals of the course. Then it moves further on to the degree program overall, where all courses with specific learning goals on program level. And then it goes on to the portfolio of degree programs in schools. For example, all the master programs you have, or all the MBA programs. And the final level is that your educational vision and your school is dedicated in all its activities to these principles. So you see layers there are in the system before it really hits the core. And I think many schools are very eager to learn from the 800 schools on the platform how many differentiation there is among schools in the level of intensity and how much sustainability, not only a threshold for an individual, but a threshold for a course, for a program, for a portfolio, and even for an educational vision. That is, I think, in the end, what PRIME should codify, is where the transition happens, in which intensity, in which scope, and so on. And I hope that through the many reportings we received this summer, we get for the time a global understanding of where PRME really is in degree programs of signatory schools. That would be a very nice picture in the end.
Thank you. That was really insightful, and I'm really taken by the idea that actually there's so many multiple layers of integration of some of sustainability and responsible management education literacies in terms of how we embed them into our practice, whether it's in the classroom, in the learning outcomes at program level, extracurricular, co-curricular, and the general ethos of the school or the institution. And I'd like to direct that back to Aurélien and then Vejo, if I might, to ask, at what levels are you seeing this integration in terms of the work that is happening in the context of your own platforms and tools? Aurélien first, perhaps?
Right, thank you, Beverly. So yeah, the integration part is quite important for us because as I was saying, you know, we are only one piece of the puzzle, a crucial one, I think, but a piece of the puzzle. So for us, it's really important to integrate at two levels. One is the level of the university, for sure, as Wilfried was mentioning. You know, what does it mean for the whole program, for the whole curriculum, and not only for one course specifically, because students will learn through the different courses, through the internships, through the project pedagogy, different forms of pedagogy, and everything that they will do during their learning pathway. So it's really important for us that tasks and the data that are produced are used across courses, across programs, and on the learning pathway. This is really the purpose of the tool, to inform the learning pathway, to track progress, and to inform the pedagogy. And the second level of integration is on a broader level through the skills competencies framework. You know, knowledge and understanding sustainability is one of the sustainability competency that we need. And yeah, coming back to your previous comment, I do think we need a common language, which doesn't mean a unified language of sustainability, but a common understanding that will be used as a basis, as an anchor in a way, to develop, contextualize skills and competencies depending on the discipline that you are studying, depending on the job that you want to do. Of course, the goal is how do you embed sustainability in those contextualized competencies, skills, even mindset. But having a common understanding of sustainability, I think, is a way to a starting point to develop those specialized skills. So in terms of integration, what we are doing is providing a mapping of the domain of knowledge that we are promoting with task through those different framework, UNESCO, Green Comp, sustainability competencies, all the skill sets that are documented in the management literature and responsible management education.
Thank you so much, Aurélien. Vejo, over to you.
So at the very practical level, we see two kinds of integrations. The first one, which we also tend to promote when possible, is that simulation becomes part of the course. So it's like one tool in the back of tools for the instructor, and then it can be strategy course or marketing course, and then they have the content and they have the simulation bringing in the experiential learning component. The other integration we see sometimes is that there's a separate business simulation course which then runs on its own. But in both cases, I would say that it is a very integral part of the entire program, because any program in respectable business school, they have some kind of integrative experiential learning element to them.
Sorry, muted myself again. Thank you so much. We have 5 minutes left, and I think so far for me it's been fascinating. And I absolutely agree that maybe at the heart of this, the experiential element is really fundamental in enabling bringing together of so many of these nested and complex and potentially, yes, quite fluid ideas, but being able to crystallize them a little bit in a particular context through authentic experiences like that is maybe a way forward through some of that. I'd like to invite my fellow participants for any final thoughts. I'm very conscious of time now, but it has been absolutely fascinating to hear your thoughts and suggestions for how we might integrate further and collaborate on this work. So thank you.
To give a small, Beverly, I think we are currently adversity situation in higher education, at least in Europe. And I think with all the good intentions we have for sustainability learning, we will be scaled down by the government. So the price per student and the price per learning element will go down. So what we will in the end be able of all the wonderful concepts in the holistic shop of concepts will probably be scaled down to a few basic core concepts that are so generic that they're not even exciting anymore because the government doesn't pay for it anymore. And I think that's for business school a serious thing, is what kind of value for money in sustainability learning can we still give in this adversity situation? And I guess this is serious at the moment.
So for me, I think you're right. I think there are always increasing financial pressures, but they won't go away. But I'm also very conscious of how absolutely fundamental the skill set that is going to be needed in the future is if we are serious about wanting to tackle climate change and sustainability crises. And I mean that in the broader sense, thinking about people and as well as the planet. So for me, I think it's part of, yes, there are governmental pressures, but I also think we are seeing increasing pressures from students to integrate this into our own practice. And the demand from students is that they want to learn about this stuff. They're very aware of what's resting on their shoulders for future years, and the understanding that actually, if they want to be distinctive in the workplace, if they want to be able to be part of the discussion and working towards the solutions or multiple solutions, I should say, in the future, then I think a broader understanding of that is something that they're going to be requesting of us. So yes, very conscious of pressures coming down on institutions from multiple angles, not just government, but also business from some angles. I think the rejoinder to that is the demand that's coming up from Generation Z and Generation Alpha around the desire or the urge to learn more about this stuff, and to the urge of older generations to take them seriously when they speak about those issues. So I think somehow universities are once again stuck in the position of having to navigate and negotiate those different interest groups. So perhaps that's something we need to add to our sustainability literacy.
I think this is an element of our reality and an interesting dilemma for every dean. The government pays me so much, I can deliver some efficiency education to get the value for money in, otherwise I lose, or listen to all the students who want to see concepts. That is a desperate dilemma.
It is a real challenge, but I'm afraid we don't have time. We could go on for another hour. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much to all my colleagues here on the call and to my fellow panelists. It's been a pleasure to spend an hour with you. Please stay in touch with us. We will be sharing the responses to the Mentimeters in due course. I hope you found it a valuable and insightful session. Please keep in touch, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.